Drinks, food, art, fun. This is Hops and Spirits Kentucky.
You can tell it's a Kentucky winter. Some days it's 70, some days it's 30, and then some days it's rainy. It's just, you get all seasons in just a little short period. I hope you're having a great week. We got a great episode for you this week as we kick off our Road Trip 2023 series by going up to the greater Cincinnati area and Northwood Cider for a Q&A. But before we do that, let's see what's pouring around Kentucky. And just like the Gnarly Gnome said, Garage Beer, Braxton Brewing's popular lager, is now its own brand. That's right, it's kind of separate from Braxton. Braxton's co-founder Jake Rouse made the official announcement earlier this month that a new partnership with brand investment marketer Andrew Sawyer had been formed, creating Garage Beer Co. Sawyer is the president of the new company, which will focus solely on growing distribution, sales, and notoriety of the beloved Covington-based craft beer brand, while Braxton continues to brew the beer. The Garage Beer cans will also have a new look, but you'll still be able to get to enjoy them at Braxton tap rooms. Craft bourbon brand Bluegrass Distillers officially broke ground this month on its new $8 million distillery on the historic Elkwood Farm property out in Midway, which is just outside of Lexington. The Elkwood Farm property was purchased in 2020. The Elkwood Mansion, which sits on the property, was built in 1835 and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The new location, expected to open later this year, will include a 36-inch column still, 6 18,000-gallon fermentation tanks with room for future growth, as well as barrel warehouses, a bottling line, tasting room, visitor center, and event space. Once open, the distillery will increase Bluegrass Distillers' capacity by over 100 times to meet growing demand and facilitate contract distilling and a bottling operation. Opened in Lexington in 2013, Bluegrass Distillers produces products include like their Kentucky Straight Blue Corn Bourbon, Kentucky Straight Wheated Bourbon, 5 Rye Whiskeys, and seasonal products. They're located right there by West 6th. In Louisville, Against the Grain has changed the name of its downtown taproom and restaurant at Slugger Field. The Smokehouse and Barbecue is gone, and in its place is Against the Grain Public House, which will align it with its Bardstown Road location of the same name, which will be called the Public House Highlands. Folks can expect a menu that will focus on burgers, gourmet hot dogs, and wraps, along with a few holdovers. Against the Grain and sponsors Monks Road Bourbon are throwing quite the Kentucky Food Bash, though. On Saturday, March 18th at 3 p.m., Against the Grain will host Louisville's second annual Burgoo Bash, a program cook-off aimed at bringing out the best amateur and professional burgoo makers in the region, and that is definitely a Kentucky dish right there. Up next, though, like I said, it's our Road Trip 2023 series kickoff as we talk with Darrin Wilson, co-founder of Northwood Cider, which is in the greater Cincinnati area. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our Q&A, and he's kicking off our Road Trip series 2023 as we go outside the state, just a little bit up in the greater Cincinnati region. Please welcome in the co-owner of Northwood Cider and a good friend of mine, Darrin Wilson.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to chat again. It's been a little while, and you know what? It looks like you're doing some fun things up there.
Yeah, we're having fun up here and making some cider and working with the community. And yeah, everything's great right now.
Now, before we get into what you're doing up there at Northwood and get the story behind it, for those that might not know about you, the Cliff Note. I call this the Cliff Notes because I know some people can go very deep and, then the show's over when they're done. So the Cliff Notes version about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a native Kentuckian, actually. So I'm from Laurel County, grew up, born and raised. My normal day job is I'm actually a college professor. I'm at Northern Kentucky University. But before I was at Northern, I was at EKU. That's where we know each other from, Richmond area. And I was the co-founder of Dreaming Creek Brewing before coming up here and starting Northwood.
Now, how did, with Northwood, you got new partners, you've got a whole new thing going on there. How did you become partners? Your family kind of interact with, I believe it's Joe Clare. Is that your other co-owner and his wife and everything?
Yeah, Joe and Rowan. Yeah. We actually met through a mutual colleague of mine in my department at the university. And we were having drinks actually at Wooden Cask down in Newport. So Joe and Rowan live in Newport, Kentucky. And yeah, Q, my wife and I, were having drinks with them, and we mentioned that we used to own a brewery, and they had said that they had always been interested in owning a brewery as well. And so we started chatting, and this was pre-pandemic. This is like 3 years ago, and yeah, that's how it all got started.
Now, obviously, you kind of have that brewery experience. I believe he's in the real estate world, so I'm guessing you kind of had a good combination of skills that you guys could bring to the table.
Oh, absolutely. And our spouses are very active in the business as well. I mean, they're co-owners with us. So my wife, Kiyu, actually does branding and marketing as her normal day job. So she handles our social media and so forth. And then Rowan is actually a nutritionist here in Cincinnati. And so she does a lot of the education side of things, like food pairings and that.
So it's a true partnership, and that's
Yeah.
that's really cool. And now you mentioned you used to own a brewery down in Richmond, but that was beer. Now you're on the cider side of things. So what made you guys go the cider route?
So, long story short, we spent about 2 years trying to find a location for a brewery. But anybody that knows Cincinnati metro area, including Northern Kentucky side, there's a brewery pretty much in every city, every neighborhood. And Joe's job with real estate is very community focused. One of my teaching research areas is community development as well. And so we really wanted to find a space that we could not only produce beer, but also be a part of the community and help, facilitate conversations within there. And so after 2 years, we landed in Norwood. But along that path, though, we realized we both love cider. And so Joe loves cider because he can't have gluten. I think he has a gluten intolerance. I used to live in the United Kingdom years ago, and that's actually where I got exposed to cider, and I absolutely loved it. It's not the sweet stuff that you see like with an Angry Orchard and others. It's very like farmhouse style, and that's where I fell in love with it. And then we realized, hey, there's no cider, no dedicated cidery in the Cincinnati metro area. Let's do it. And so we love the product, and we love being the only one right now. So
Well, and it's kind of amazing when you think about it, because Cincinnati's been known for brewing up stuff for a long, long, long time. They've got a rich history. When you were looking around, was it weird to find that there was not a cidery in the region?
yeah, it was. I think it was Joe who did the research on this. We were the third largest market in the United States without a dedicated cidery. Being living in central Kentucky and you being there now, I mean, Lexington has two wonderful cideries with Weisbird and Pivot. And so, we see a city like Lexington that has a vibrant cider community, and then looking at Cincinnati and saying, wait a second, that seems weird. We don't have one here. And so we just felt like it was a good niche and good market to get into.
And now you talked about searching for a long time. I've talked to a lot of folks. Finding the location and the name are probably the two hardest things when it comes to it. Did you really have, I believe, one of your students put you onto the map of Norwood?
Yes, Tom Perry. He's now an alum of our program and doing well. No, so he lives in Norwood, Ohio, or that's where he's from. And in my bio to my students every semester, I happen to mention I used to own a brewery. This is before we started Northwood. And one day after class, he comes up to me and says, "Hey, would you ever be interested in opening up a brewery?" And I go, "Well, actually, my business partner and I are trying to find a location for our cidery by this point." And he goes, "Well, come look at Norwood." And he worked for city government here in Norwood at the time, and he got a group of folks from the community to meet with us, and we did a walking tour of Norwood, looking at different buildings. And yeah, and so we were looking. Actually, I'm looking at the city building that we originally looked at compared to where we're at now. And we were walking past the building that we have now, and it was an auto garage. It has been an auto garage building since 1934. That's how long we've traced this history back. And we were walking by, and Tom goes, "I think Jim's looking to sell the building. He's looking to retire, from the auto repair industry. And he's looking to sell." And so we called up Jim and found his number, called him up, and said, "Hey, we'd like to take a look at your building if you're interested in selling it." And he was, and that's how we ended up where we're at. So.
It sounds like you've got a good group of people there in your department. I mean, putting you in with the Claires, the location. I mean, I think you found a good spot up there.
Yeah, I know. It's I lucked out, so it's been wonderful.
Now, you're called Northwood.
Mhm.
We've discussed that the city though is called Norwood.
Yeah.
How did the name come about? What I'm
Yeah.
confused.
So
I'll leave it at that.
yeah, so the community of Norwood was originally called Sharpsburg, over like 150 years ago. And then there was this woman, a prominent woman in the community called Sarah Bowles, and she did the late 1800s, and she just realized that she didn't like the name Sharpsburg. And so she came across, well, there's different tales of the story, but she came across the name Northwoods, and Norwood is slightly north of downtown Cincinnati, and it's up on a hill, and it was a wooded area. And so she initially said, let's take Northwoods, the name, and shrink that down into Norwood, and that's where we get Norwood and the city. So actually, Sarah, our semi-sweet cider is actually named Sarah in honor of Sarah Bowles, and then our dry cider is named 1903, and that was the year that the city of Norwood was actually incorporated.
And then obviously I'm guessing you enjoyed the history of all that being, what you do and so forth. And is that how you decided to go with Northwood instead of Norwood, just to kind of have something maybe a little easier to say too?
Yeah, something a little easier, not confusing. There is a Norwood, Ohio. I did learn along the way. Luckily, they don't have a cidery, and well, maybe one day they might. Right, we go up there, but no, we loved kind of the throwback to where Norwood originated from. Its history and its rich past. Actually, if you see the logo right there. So there's three hills. So actually, Norwood is also called the Gem of the Highlands. Once again, the Highlands, the ridge above Cincinnati, and so we took that idea and put little Highlands mountains in our logo as well, just the throwback to honor the city and its history.
Well, and you've touched on this a lot so far in our conversation about community being important. That was something you guys wanted to do when you found a spot, was be part of the community, and also in your day job, that's kind of what you look at a lot as well, as community. And how important is that for that to be a big part of what y'all do and be part of the tap room and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have started and been as successful as we have been so far without the support of the community. And we engaged with community partners and residents and other businesses from day one. And we've never looked back from that. And so what we try to do is we want to be an open and inclusive space, use our tap room for community events, bring people together. We're actually right across the street from Victory Park. It's city's park. That's kind of their main one in the downtown area, where we've actually, even before we opened, we co-sponsored a music series last summer there as well. There's a market on one Saturday a month during the summer months and into the fall that they actually close our street down. And we've partnered with that organization that runs that to say, yes, like, let's continue to do this. We want people to come together, and we want to be that space where people can meet up with friends or make news.
It's the old cheer slogan. Everyone knows your name. Got a seat at the bar, and
Yep.
I love that, because where I said we've known each other for a good while. I remember seeing all the pictures you'd put up about different events. You guys hadn't even had it much going into the building yet, and you're already out there doing stuff. How important was that too, to let people know, hey, we are part of the community too. Like, this is our home, and this is, we're proud to be part of it.
Yeah, and we're a regional cidery, but yet, being in Norwood, the people in Norwood are very proud, and they love this community. It's a lot of folks who have been here for many generations, or maybe younger families that have just moved into the community and they absolutely love it. I mean, we're literally surrounded by the city of Cincinnati. The city of Norwood is, and so it has its own school district and so forth. And so we really wanted to be a part of, say, Norwood, we are a part of you, and you're a part of us, and they've been wonderful. They've been wonderful to us so far.
And now you officially opened the doors at the end of November, or in November, is that right?
Yeah, November. I know it says up there established 2021. No, that's when we incorporated and started this whole process, as Northwood Cider Company. But yeah, we opened in November, and it's been great. It's been great. We've had sellout, bumper crowds here, and people really enjoyed the product, and yeah, it's been great.
I was going to say, I mean, when people think about it, they always get to see the fun side of it. Hey, I work in a brewery, I work in a cidery, we're putting out product. But Thinking about that, it took 2 years to find a location. It took multiple years to get it up and running. What was it like with all those challenges? Because I mean, you had gone through it before with a different brewery and so forth, but even then, there's still new ones I feel like that could pop up at any time.
Yeah, and with my previous experience and Joe's experience with real estate development and on the construction side of things, we knew that, we have one shot to do it right, right? We want to do it right the first time. And so that's why we took our time finding the right location, the right community, but even building out the tap room itself. I mean, the construction period took almost a year from renovating the building to getting open. But we wanted to make sure it was done right, and that we don't have to go back the second time around, to fix things or to upgrade things and so forth. I mean, our production facility here in the building, it's meant for distribution. We didn't want to start off too small where we're having to buy tanks later on. We wanted to start off like, okay, we want to start canning, we want to start distributing as quickly as we can. So we planned it out, tried to for growth early on.
Well, and that's a smart thing, because that's always the ultimate goal is to continue to grow. And now we talked about this, your cidery.
Mhm.
For those that don't know what that means, what does that mean? Because cider, what folks might have in their mind is one thing, what it truly is maybe another.
So cider is essentially an alcoholic beverage that's made from apples, right? And so what we look at ciders is it goes from sweet to dry. And so your sweet ones, you're thinking of like your Angry Orchards, your woodchucks and so forth. But actually, the vast majority of ciders around the world are actually on the drier side. Legally in the United States, we're a winery. So our process goes the exact same way a winery does, right? So you put the juice into the fermentation tanks, you add the yeast, you ferment, and then in our case, we package it in kegs and eventually cans as well. But in the United States, though, we have a weird history with cider. So early on in colonial times, all the way up to about Prohibition, cider was the number one drink in the United States. I mean, that's where you have stories of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, having orchards and actually drinking cider, with every meal. But up at Prohibition time, what happened was they cut down all the cider-specific trees. So there are two types of trees, roughly. There's your table apple trees, right? You go to the grocery store, you buy some apples, comes from that type of tree. Then there are cider-specific trees that make apples that are bitter, that are acidic, that you would not want to eat, but they make amazing cider. And so during Prohibition, almost all the cider trees got cut down, and so we've been left with table apples compared to people like in Europe and others where they still have those types of trees. They can make really great cider, and so it's starting to come back. In the United States, there's more and more orchards planting cider-specific trees. There's certain regions of the United States that have a lot of cider-specific trees, which is in like the New York area, Michigan, and the Pacific Northwest.
And for y'all, you kind of touched on this a little bit. You're probably not so much on the Angry Orchard side, but on the other. So for you all, how do you approach ciders?
Yeah, so we bring in juice. So we're actually what we call an urban cidery. So we actually don't have our own orchard. So we bring in juice from orchards, typically in the Michigan area, via tanker truck. We do about 3,500 gallons at a time. We'll get some smaller batches of cider juice from different orchards around maybe Ohio to do some test batches or even some special release things. But we bring it in, we pump it into our tanks. We do a lot of laboratory analysis, so we test for things like pH, acidity, Brix, so sugar content. Then we put yeast into that cider, into the juice that's to ferment it. But one of the things is because once again we don't have cider-specific apples in the United States, or very few of them at least. We add what we call malic acid, so that's actually natural to apples. So citric acid, people probably have heard of, that's natural to oranges. Malic is natural to apples, and so we add that for a little bit of tartness. We ferment usually down to bone. We always ferment down to bone dry. Now we take a different perspective of what we also do with the cider. So we actually will co-ferment a lot of times with other fruits, or we'll do things like we'll put dry hops. We'll do dry hopping with some of our stuff. We'll add botanicals, lavender, basil. Actually, we're about to put into a bright tank today a cider that we've made before, and we're making it again, where it was co-fermented with different berries. but also has a simple syrup on the back end with a basil in it as well. And so we do a lot of things that people may not know that could be cider.
And I'm guessing this is all natural. You're not just getting some concentrated juice off the shelf at the store and putting it in anything.
No, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is all of our juice is 100% fresh pressed. So when we place the order with the orchard, they press it and they immediately ship it down to us. All of our other flavors are all natural. I'm literally juices or purees, nothing from concentrate. All of our botanicals are natural botanicals and spices, all that. Yeah, nothing artificial at all goes into our stuff.
And you mentioned this earlier, basically you are more of a winery than a brewery. So when folks are coming there, I'm guessing they're not gonna get the typical brewery experience in the sense of maybe something they're familiar with on tap unless they're just a cider drinker.
Yeah, and that speaks also to how we've built out our tap room as well. We are in an old industrial building, right, an auto garage shop, but we want to put a softer touch to it as well. So you can see like behind me the white walls, the chandelier a little bit, and if you do come to the tap room, you'll see the spaces got a lot of plants in it as well, some green walls. And so we wanted to create a very inviting atmosphere for people that visit us. And then our cider selection, like I said, it goes all the way from dry to sweet. But we also have lots of different things like the Highlands, which is our dry hop cider. We do have the HLA, which is a dry cider that has been co-fermented with different berries. But we also have Sandbar, which is our citrus cider that is on the sweet side. So yeah, we play with a lot of things. We want to offer customers a wide range of what ciders can be. And we do also offer a few guest taps of beer from local breweries here in the Cincinnati area.
Well, and I think you've also touched on this too, that you guys can be experimental. Because like I said, a lot of people, if they're used to breweries, they know every different flavor seems to be out there nowadays. But you guys take that approach, that it seems like, to cider too, and have a little bit of fun and kind of try to see what you guys can push the envelope with.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the great things about the cider industry in the United States is there's no norms. There's you have everything from dry to sweet, and some of the types of apples that you can use. But other than that, it's sort of a wild west at this point. There's no 100 different styles of IP like in the IPA world, right? It's what can you put together and what creates a great flavor profile. So we actually pride ourselves, our head cider maker Candace Wittenbauer, we do a test batch Thursday. So every Thursday we release a very small batch of a cider that is her creation. Yesterday we released a coffee cider, so it's actually a Thai coffee cider. So we fermented fresh pressed juice. We added coffee from a local local coffee shop here in Norwood, and then we added cinnamon to it and condensed milk. And so we experiment every week just to see what people like and don't like, and just test things out.
Well, and I think one of my favorites is, I don't believe it was a test batch, but you said it there a little bit ago, the HLA, the happy little accident. And can you tell that story, because I just love the name. And
Yeah.
and to me, it reminds me a little bit of Tank 7 in a sense of Boulevard, where they never planned on burning it, but everyone kept going back and going, "This is really good. Now you've got a beer." It's almost like that with your cider.
Yeah, so it was our first run of juice. We were about to open. We were trying to get things ready for a grand opening, which we had already set the date for, and we had fermented a batch of cider down to dry, and then we were going to back sweeten it with different juices from berries and so forth. And we put the tank, or the IBC tote in this case, in the cold room to cold crash it, not realizing or forgetting that it was going to re-ferment. And we thought, because our cold room's like 34 degrees, it's like it's going to be too cold to do anything like that. We can always add sorbate later on. That literally the next day after we put it in the cold room, we came in and the tank actually expanded so wide that we couldn't get it out of the cold room through the cold room door. One of those big industrial refrigeration doors. Could not get it out through that door. And so we scooted it up slightly to that door so we could then pump the juice out. And then eventually, a few weeks later, I took literally a sledgehammer to put the cage back in so that we could slide it out through the door. But the thing is customers absolutely loved that dry cider, and so we actually we were making it again, but this time on purpose, not by accident. So
I love it. A happy little accident that
Yep.
tastes so good. And you said when folks come up there, they'll kind of be that inviting, that warm touch. I'm guessing what else can they expect when they come visit the tap room?
Yeah, we actually have lots of things like we have board games. We even got a retro SNES game system set up as well. During the summers, we'll open up the garage door and let the cool air, summer air come in. And yeah, we don't have food, but we are always takeout friendly. We do have food trucks that come in on a regular basis on Fridays. We're expanding that. We do things like we had a Valentine's Day market this past weekend. On Valentine's Day, we had a stupid Cupid party where you could make ornaments that are the little heart ornaments like candies, but anti-Valentine's Day ones. So we do lots of different festivals and markets and events. We do trivia nights on Wednesday nights, and yeah, we just like to have a lot of fun here.
And like I said at the beginning, this is part of our Road Trip 2023 series. So if folks are coming up, whether it's a couple's night out or the family's coming up, what are some cool areas to hit nearby that they might enjoy?
Yeah, so we're about 15 minutes from Over the Rhine area of downtown Cincinnati. So if anybody's familiar with that portion of town, so I mean we're not that far away. Nearby us, if you like if you love great breweries, we're right down the street from Mad Tree. We're not far from High Grain and Nine Giant. But we're actually getting a huge complex being built in Norwood, where it's going to have a pickleball facility. High Wire Brewing is going in there as well. We've got Fredport Brewing going in there. Lots of different shops and restaurants going in as well. So we're, if you're familiar with the Rookwood area, if you ever stopped off at Rookwood in Norwood, it's a little shopping pavilion over there right off the interstate. That's nearby where we're at. And so there's just lots of different fun things to do within a 10-15 minute drive of our location.
Sounds like the perfect road trip to have a good weekend, all sorts of things. And I guess my last question for you, Darrin, is what's next for y'all? Because it sounds like you guys have set yourself up for some growth and are hoping to work that way.
Yeah, so the next step for us is actually distribution. We delivered our first keg of cider to outside of our tap room a couple weeks ago. It was up to Cartridge Brewing up in Mason, Ohio. So if anybody's familiar with Kings Island area, next week we start. Actually, this is gonna be an exclusive for you, Jonathan. We have not announced this. Next week we start canning our first ciders, and we're gonna have those out for distribution, hopefully in the next about a month or so, as well as pushing out more distribution, both in Ohio and in Northern Kentucky.
I love to see that, and I love to see what you've been able to do up there, and I can't wait to make a visit. And Darrin, thanks for reminiscing and kind of giving me some good news and an exclusive. I mean, I can't ask for anything more than that.
Oh, excellent! No, and this has been wonderful, Jonathan. I love the podcast. You're doing wonderful stuff, and to the listeners out there, keep supporting the alcohol industry. Go try new things and explore. It's a great world out there right now to be a drinker.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.